Hi there, this is Art and Such, and today I'm going to show you how to make a basic Dreamcatcher. For this project you're going to need a ring or hoop, and the one I'm using is 5 inches across, but you can pick any size that you like. You're going to need some thread or string. I'll be using this thin golden thread, and my general rule is I measure my ring, the diameter across, and I cut my thread about 10 times as long so that worst case scenario you've got a little extra. So I've got one cut at 100 centimeters, about a meter. You will need some leather glue, something to apply it with, some scissors, leather wrap. Now you can buy this or you can cut it. This I've cut myself, and it's about 5 to 7 millimeters wide. Make the pieces as long as you can. If you have to add on more than one, that's okay. We will be using more than one piece. And what I like to do with the ends is give a little diagonal trim, and that just makes things line up a little bit neater. You are also going to need a needle for your thread, some clear nail polish or hardener to finish your project or your knots off, a bead or charm or pony bead, something with a large hole that we can use to put some feathers in at the end, and we'll put some wrap in there as well. And you can use a bead or a charm in the center. I've got this pretty little butterfly one I've been wanting to use, so that's what I've got. And the only other thing I would suggest having on hand is some old newspapers or some scrap paper that you can place under your ring when you're doing your gluing, just to keep things clean. So we will start with our wrap then, and I'm going to grab one of my longer pieces. Check that things are pretty even, and we've got our nice diagonal cuts on both sides. Open up your glue. And we'll take the applicator, and we're going to start by wrapping this. So put a dab of glue onto your ring where you'd like the top to be. And just put that down there for now. We're going to take one end of the wrap, place it on, and hold it there for a little bit. And while you're holding it and the glue is drying, you can start to bring your wrap over, under, and through. But don't let go of that first piece until, as I said, it's started to dry. If you want to just leave it there, wait to wrap, that's okay too. And if you want to make that extra secure, you can put a twist tie or a piece of wire, wrap it around, and that will hold it a little bit while it dries, but I like to be pressing it right onto the ring. Usually a good 30 seconds ought to do it. And if you find it's coming off, you can reapply the glue. You can try a different glue, you can try a different leather. You can also try to clean or even rub your ring. Sometimes it's a problem of friction between the metals and the fabric. So I think we're good here. Come back to press it again a couple of times here and there. We'll keep wrapping while we turn. And if you don't want to use leather and you want to use wool to wrap, you can do something like that instead, or ribbon. The leather wrap really does work nicely though, and it glues better than a lot of other materials, so long as you've got the right glue. Now, this one is probably going to be a little too short, so I will show you in a minute how you can add on a second, what do you call it, row, line piece of wrap if you don't have enough on your first one. Well, maybe this will be long enough. Oh, so close, so close. We'll make it. Maybe. And you can see as I'm going, I'm not quite overlapping, although you can. I'm trying to put the pieces right beside each other. So this piece was long enough. If one of your pieces did run out, what you would do is glue down the end, press it down, let that dry, and then attach another piece right next to it. So that's where it's nice to have the little diagonals, because then your start and end piece should line up more nicely. When you do get to the end, you're going to put a little bit of glue on the underside. Open the lid again here. Not a lot, just a little bit of glue on the underside. And pull that tight towards the top, and we're going to give that a minute to dry off. And rub off any glue you can now, because it should dry clear, but better safe than sorry, right? Okay, I'm going to put that down just for a minute while that's drying. And we can start getting our thread ready in the meantime. Not that there's not much to do, but I've got a little bit of a loose end here I want to trim on the back side. And we're going to get our needle. I don't have any particular recommendations on needles. Of course, it will depend on the kind of thread you're using. So larger hole, smaller hole, longer needle, shorter needle, whatever you're comfortable with and feel will work. I'm going to pull the thread back and through towards the end, but not all the way. The reason I do this, it's 2 or 3-fold. When we're knotting, when we're weaving, we will have to be pulling the thread all the way back through each time. So when it's at the halfway point like that, it's not quite as much to pull. And also the really long threads, particularly the thin threads, they like to tangle up and twist around. So this restricts that a bit. We're going to take the one end and tie a knot over our starting piece, our starting place. I would do 2 or 3 knots to be safe. If you've got a really springy thread, you can even do an extra knot there. Let's do 2. Nice and tight. And 3. And I'm going to do 1 more. Don't worry too much if there's a little bit of a tail. We can cut it and we can cover it. So it's okay. We're going to go to the other side. I just want to make sure this is on nice and good. So this is the part that didn't have glue on it, and I'm going to trim that off, get it out of the way. Okay. Move the white piece, or the yellow piece out of the way. Get the white background. And here's what we do. We're going to bring the needle and thread to the front, and if you've done any macrame or friendship bracelets, this knot should look familiar. We're going to be going over and across the outside of the ring and reaching the needle back over, under, and up through this hole. So the needle goes under and back through. I'm pinching it at the back with my middle finger, and then gonna grab it with my forefinger and the thumb on the front. As I pull it back through, I can move it to the place I'd like it to sit. This is about 1.5 inches, 2 inches. I'm going to pinch it there and repeat. So turn it just a little bit and bring the thread across. The needle's going to come back from the back to the front, so between the ring and the thread. Pull it through and adjust it to where we want it to be. And we're going to try and get about the same distance for each of these sets. So let's keep going around. Move a little faster here. And just be gentle with your thread. You do want to hold it tightly once it's in place, but while you're pulling it through, do it gently so that your thread doesn't snap or your string doesn't snap, because then you'll have to add more on, and that's a big messy thing which we don't want to do today. Now this fourth one here, I'm going to try to make sure that it's somewhat lined up to the top. If I pull it across, I want a bit of a straight line. And then we can mirror across for our anchoring points on the other side. And as the thread starts to get a little bit shorter, you can pull more of it back through the needle. If that makes sense. Because at some point it'll look like there are two coming through. When you get back to the top, stretch this out a little more here. Okay, so I don't like the distance here. I'm going to loosen these up a little bit and readjust where they're sitting. Just bear with me for a minute here. I'm going to make it go closer to an inch on each one, because when we get to the end we want it to still be nice and even. And we're probably going to have to do one more time once we get there. That's okay. And just keep it tight as you go. And if you like the distance you had already, that's fine too. There isn't necessarily a right or a wrong here. The idea is just to keep it as even as you can. And if you're not liking this method of loosening and tightening, you can always undo some of the pieces, pull it back, and basically restart it, but you shouldn't have to do that. Okay, so we are still lined up with the start. Our pieces, I've made it so that the sets are a little closer together, and the idea is when we get to the end, it should be nice and even all the way. And you might find, depending on the size that size of ring you're using, you might find some of them do work better with larger spaces between, and some of them look nicer with them closer. Okay, I'm gonna go back through my first knotted piece, my first section, or my first knot really, or under the first knot. Back through the starting place. And the next knot we're gonna do, the next row, actually this is nice and snug, we're going to bring our needle down through the first hole on the top, and then it's going to be coming back up through the new hole we create. So the needle end goes through, and then it's going to be coming under and back through that new hole. I'll show you what that looks like in just a second here. The needle will go under, back up, and over the thread. You want to center it on that first piece and pinch it there. We'll do this going all the way around again. So go under through the hole in the next piece between the ring and the string, back up and over the thread. Center it as best you can. Pull it inwards a little bit when you pinch it. And repeat between the ring and the string, under, up, and straight through. Pull it in, center it, pinch it, turn the ring again, and we're going to continue going around that way. Now, if at any point you have to let go, if your thread comes out from your needle, or something's burning on the stove, this will not all come apart if you have to let go, but it will loosen up a little bit, in which case when you pick it up you'll want to give a little tightness check and pull things a little tighter before you start going again. So I'll just show you what happened there. When I pulled this through, the thread got pulled tight here. And if you look right up here, the thread is going over the ring. We just have to loosen it up and give it a pull. And that will happen sometimes, just if it's too high up or whatnot. And when we're back at the top again, you're going to find the first hole of the second row. Get between it. These two are going to be very close together. And it's going to come back up and over your thread. Mine is trying to slip out of the needle there. Have to be careful. Pull it tight towards the center and keep going around. And I'm going to pause this video and catch up with you right when we are at the center. I'll show you one last time and then I'll sign off for a minute here. So through the hole, under, and the needle comes back up over your thread. Okay, I'll see you back in just a minute. Okay, so if you just want to add a bead on, what you'll do is put your needle through the bead, reach across, go through the net on the Dreamcatcher on the other side from the front to the back, pull through all the way, just stuck on. There we go, and then push the bead back and go across through it from the back side, and you can go forward and back a couple of times until it's in nice and snugly. And then to secure it, before I show you how to do the charm, to secure it, you will go under one of your pieces and back up and over and through, and do the same kind of knot you did before, but you'll want to do that a couple of times. Let me remove this, and I'm going to attach my charm. The easiest way in this case will be just to pull that straight out. Okay, let's bring our thread back to the front. And if you want to stitch on a charm or a button, anything like that, what we'll do is place it on the Dreamcatcher where you'd like it to sit. And we're going to sew it on the way you would sew a button. So come from the back through the front, pull your whole thread through, and return it to the back through the next available hole. Keep holding it nice and tight, nice tight pulls. We're going to do this a few times until it is nice and good and secure. I'm trying to go through the same spaces every time because I don't want the thread to be all over the place. I want it to be focused just in the center. Now if you did just use a bead, or you've got your charm on, you're ready to secure, feel free to jump ahead a couple of minutes where I will join you presently and I can show you at that point how to finish this off before we get onto our feathers and our hook, or our, I don't know what you would call it, hanging piece, a piece to hang it with. couple more times. And there, just see if it's a little wobbly. I think I will attach it at the bottom as well, tighten it up in here. So let's find a couple of spots near the bottom. And depending on the kind of bead or charm you might be using, you'll be using different techniques or getting different results. That's okay. There we go. And on the opposite side to keep it even. Too tight there. Oh, no, went through. One more time and then we'll be ready to finish this off. Okay, to finish off your Dreamcatcher, we're going to turn to the back, go under one or more threads, but close together. Pull the thread that's on the needle up a little bit, and we're going to grab the needle and pull it through. And then we repeat, and we'll try and do it at about the same place. So the needle has gone through. We're going to reach our fingers through the loop it's created, pull the needle back through, and I'd like to do that one more time just to be sure. Nice and tight. You can pinch it in a little with your fingernail carefully. And what we'll do is we'll trim the thread part way, not too close, and grab your clear nail polish. Just make sure my glue that's on there. Find the knots that you've made with your thread, and we're going to dab a little bit of this on. What it does is it causes the thread to sort of tighten and harden and stay where we want it to be. It'll help the knots to keep from breaking, and it finishes it off nicely as well. And when that's dry, then we'll be able to cut the threads a little more closely. Let's give that a second. And while we're waiting, we want to get another piece of leather wrap ready. And figure out about the size you'd like for the piece that's going to hang it. Even out any parts that need evening out. You can see I've got one little mark there. And diagonal cut on the end because it looks nice. By now our polish should have hardened, so at this point you can trim your threads pretty close. Careful not to cut your knots, but you can cut the threads very close to the top there. We'll get those out of the way. And we're going to take our wrap. Now I said decide on your height, so I'm going to do mine, let's see, we will want a little extra. I think I want my loop to be about 3 inches long, and I'm going to cut about, let's see, about another 3 inches in length. So doubled over, it's going to be about 6 inches long for mine. If it's a little bit extra, that's okay. If it's a little bit shorter, that's okay, but careful not to make it too short because we need some of that extra part. What we're going to do is make it into a kind of a loop here. And it's going to go under let's do it from the back to the front. Okay, so go from the back to the front, under a couple of, like under both sides of the first knot where you started. This is just a way I like to finish this off here. So arrange the top hanging loop to about the size that you'd like. Bring your sides close together Make sure both sides of the leather are facing the same way. And what we're going to do is cross these up and over. Hold it there and turn your piece around or over. And we're going to tie these into a knot and stick a little bit of glue inside the knot. So cross them over, under, pull through. And I'm going to grab my applicator thing, my stick, dab a little bit of glue right under the knot. And then pull my knot tight. Which is really awkward to do at this angle, but we will try. And I'm going to do a second knot just to be sure. And you can trim off a little bit of the excess, or you can leave it there. It's up to you. You know what? I think I am going to keep only one knot. This is a little too lumpy for my liking. There, that's nice. Trim that down. You can leave it long, make it short. And the last thing for us to do is going to be to add our feathers. Okay, everything's lined up. And let me show you a couple of options you've got for your feathers. So first of all, if you would like to use the leather wrap to attach and you want to use a bead, I would recommend a pony bead or something with a very large hole. What you can do if you're using leather, this is the most common way, place it over the bottom, bring your two ends under and up and through. You can put your bead over one or both pieces. And what I like to do if I'm using the leather wrap and a bead is I will put a tiny drop of glue right on top, like right above it, push the bead up a little bit, and then carefully stick my feathers inside. And let it dry, of course. Now I've got this really neat little piece here that I've decided I'd like to use on this Dreamcatcher. And so what I'm going to do is, it's going to go kind of backwards. I'm going to attach the feathers and the wrap first and then put this over my hoop. So let's get my leather strip here. And we're going to pinch it. Throw a little glue into here. Press our leather wrap in as far as it will comfortably go. And then we're going to have to get the leather in, so the feathers into the leather. So let's press it in with a little extra glue. Twist it out so that it doesn't pull the leather out with it. I want to make sure I don't have a ton of glue sitting on the side as extra. And then we're going to put our feathers into this piece. Trim the leather so that both sides are pretty even. You can adjust that after. I'm going to use some beading jewelry pliers to open this up to the side, so towards me. Maybe I will open it up a little bit into the side. And we are going to somehow get this over the whole hoop. This might take me just a second. It's hard to plan these videos because every Dreamcatcher I make ends up being just a little bit different from the others. So it's no fun if you're not experimenting, if you're not trying new things. Press this back. And once that's in place, you've got your Dreamcatcher. Let me clear a space and show you the finished product here. Okay, I hope you will check out some of my other Dreamcatcher tutorials. I've got a couple that are a little bit more advanced, and I'm hoping to get some more basic beginners ones up. And I thank you for watching.